Also going to share my screen. Okay, so the question just came up about the ETS exam, which is the exam you will need to complete for your BUSA 4000 course. That is the professional exit exam course. There are two exams. One is called the ETS, that's the long one. That's a 2-hour exam that has to be proctored. If you're taking it online, I believe they still use ProctorU for that. And then the major specific exam, which is the in-course exam, the course you take, the exam you take within the BUSA 4000 Cougar View course. And depending on your major, that's only going to ask you questions regarding your specific business major. But depending on your major, that could be anywhere from 30 questions to 45 questions. That I believe they give you a couple of hours to take the quiz, and you have to score 70 or above. But if you don't get that 70 on the first try, that I believe they give you a second try on that. So we need to finish those two exams. Guys, if you haven't already, then email the Student Services Center, Miss Lockhart in the Student Services Center, as we discussed in the email that I sent out a week or two ago. That needs to be done ASAP, but that's just one of those boxes that you have to check. But the good news is if you score above the national average on the ETS, the long exam, the 2-hour exam, if you score at the national average or above, then you get 10 points extra credit added on to your second test. So if you're looking for extra credit so that you can raise your score, that's one way to get it. You'll notice that I opened up your current grade average in this course. You should be able to see not only your test 2 score, but your overall course grade average. Now that's only including 60% of your scores. Keep that in mind. We still have another 40% left, and that 40% would be your simulation score, your team simulation score, your team SWAT score, which we're going to talk a little bit more about tonight. And any remaining class homework assignments. And we still have the comp exam assessment that's worth 10% of your grade at the very end of this semester. So you have room to pull your score up. If you're really close to the next letter grade, it's certainly possible for you to pull your score up at this point. But you do need, as we've said from the beginning of the semester, you need a C or better in this class. This is one of those classes like your major classes where you need a C or better in order to meet graduation requirements. So a D won't work in this class. You have to make a C or better, a 70 or better in this class to meet graduation requirements. So do pay attention to that. Make a note of that in your on your calendar so that you can try your best on the ETS. If you haven't taken it yet, there is not a minimum score you have to make, although in order to get credit for the ETS in this class, it counts as a homework assignment in this class. In order to get credit for it, you need a 130 or above. To get the extra credit added on to your test 2, you need a 152 or above on that test. So try your best on that test. I don't want you to get too stressed out, but we do need to get that done. Okay, so for this week, you've turned in, I checked, and all teams have turned in a SWOT analysis. We're going to talk a little bit about the next step, which is the SWOT presentation. But you'll notice that I'm giving everyone a little extra time on the SWOT paper. And the reason is that, and we'll talk about the SWOT presentation in just a minute, but the reason is that I want to be sure that everybody maximizes their score on this assignment. So in the team SWOT analysis, I want to show you a few things that some teams I've seen in the past have left out that will lower your grade on this assignment. You have until Tuesday night to go back in and revise and resubmit a separate paper. I don't care how many revisions you've made to the paper and how many submissions. I'll take the very last submission. But number one, I want you to make sure that you follow if you look at the formatting instructions, that you follow the format instructions, that the paper has consistent type font. Most people use at Times New Roman, 12-point font, that it's spaced 1.5, not two, not double spaced, and not single spaced, but 1.5, and that you have the typical 1-inch margins on it. We want to keep it to 20 pages or below, including your works cited page. I had some students in my on-campus class this morning ask me if they turned in 22 or 23 pages, would they be counted off for that? And my answer is no. But again, try to keep it to 20 pages. That's the max that we put on it. So if you submitted a paper that's 22 pages, I'm not going to count off, because maybe you have extra charts or tables or something that other teams don't have. That's fine, but I'd like to try to keep it to 20 pages or less. Make sure that your first section has both the mission and vision revision. Now, in the past, I've seen teams that just have a mission statement and the mission revision, but leave out the vision, or vice versa. So make sure you have both. Make sure that you have a financial analysis and include some ratios on there. Look at the student example that I posted with this assignment. But a financial analysis should include going back 4 years on the income statement, as well as the balance sheet, 4 years of that. I want to see trends. You can easily get that from Yahoo Finance. It's free. You can get that online. You can get that from sec.gov, the company's annual reports, what we call the 10-K reports. You'll see all of that included in their report. So there are all kinds of free Google Finance or Yahoo Finance, whatever you use. Be consistent throughout the paper in which site that you use for your finances. And we want to look at it and see, are things looking better or worse? So look at the typical ratios, like the net profit margin, the gross profit margin, a couple of debt ratios. If it's a retail company, you can look at their things like their inventory turnover, if they report that. So pick out a few ratios, financial ratios that we've gone over in the class that sort of tell the story about how the company is doing, if things are looking better or if they're looking worse over the last, say, 4 or 5 years. And make sure that you've completed it. Also, some teams in the past, I've seen that they've left out that complete SWOT table, that summary table that you see in the student example. Make sure that you have your SWOT summary table, and that should be the very last thing right before your works cited page. That SWOT summary table should summarize what you have in your paper. So there shouldn't be things on the SWOT table, items that are listed in as strengths or weaknesses, opportunities and threats, that are not discussed in your paper, because again, this should summarize what you have in your paper. So if I see something on the SWOT table that makes no sense given what you talked about in your paper, then that's where you might get points deducted. I'll start asking questions about that. So these are just some things that I've seen people in the past leave out, and you'll get some points deducted from the paper. Just make sure you have all of these things included in your paper so you have some extra time on it. We're going to say until Tuesday night, which is tomorrow night. Make sure that, again, that you revise and resubmit the paper. It's already done, so this is just cleaning it up, making it a little more presentable so that you can improve your grade. If you believe that you've proofed over it, it's fine, and you've looked over it enough times and you don't want to make any other improvements, then good, you're done with it, and you can start on your SWOT presentation. All right, so if you look under the week 12 module, you will see that I do have a video explaining how to format your SWOT presentation. This is a very short video, and I go through an example, and this particular example is AT&T. This is an old example, so it's dated. It's not something that you can, if you're doing AT&T, you can't copy this. Let me stop this video. So I go through the different slides. Now this presentation should be no longer than 15 minutes. So most teams in this class have 4 people on the team, every person on your team should contribute to the oral presentation, not just to developing the PowerPoints. You shouldn't have just one person doing the entire presentation. So there's several ways that you can do this. And your team will create a video like I did here. You'll create a video. I explain this in the discussion board post. Here it is. It's on the discussion board. You're going to create a video, and you can do it the easy way, or you can be a little more creative with it. The easiest way is to just include an audio file on each slide. But if you include an audio file, then you want to make sure that each presenter introduces himself or herself on the slide. So you might, for example, assign one team member to cover the introduction in the strategic posture section of the presentation. And if they do, I'm going to pull up my PowerPoint here. Let's just say this is my PowerPoint. This is a different PowerPoint in the class. If I wanted to make this, the easiest way for me to make this include audio is just to insert an audio clip onto each individual slide. Now that's easy, but it makes it a big file. So the only way that you can actually share this with the class is to put it on the discussion board, add it as a file onto the discussion board, and the discussion board can handle large files, whereas you can't email the class. You couldn't email your teammates the file because it's too large to send through via an email. So you just click on insert, and then you're going to insert. You can see down here, and this is on my, I'm using a Mac, so yours might be slightly different, but just insert audio from, just click on record audio. All right. And I'm going to click there to start recording. I'm just recording this audio as a test. All right. I'm going to stop the record, and then I'm going to insert it. All right. And so here it is. Here's my audio file. And you can put it anywhere on the slide. You can minimize it so that people can't really see it. But what's going to happen is when I play this slide back in presentation mode, I'm just, see that? So let me go back. Okay. All right. So I went too fast on that one. Let's see if I can move this. All right. Okay. This is not going to be real technical, obviously. So if you would like to do what I do for the class, I'm just recording this audio as a test. All right, okay, so I'm just showing you how that should work. It's not, as you could tell, it's not a real technical or professional, but it's the minimum, that easiest way for you to share responsibilities with your team and include the audio portion on your PowerPoint slides. And that way, when we're watching it back, the audio will actually automatically play on each slide. And it's easier for you to divide up the responsibility. So I might, with each team member, ask them to add the audio to each slide. Now, what each team member would want to do, what you would want to do is just like any other presentation, you're not reading off the slide. The slide should contain information that adds to what you're saying, and so that when the audience sees it, the visuals add to, they help explain. You're not just reading what's on the slide. That doesn't make for a good presentation. So in general, you want to minimize the words that you use on a slide. And instead of using words on a slide, just sort of summarize what you're going to say on each slide, add visuals, add graphs and tables, whatever you think might help tell the story about what's going on with your company, and explain the company's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. What's different about this presentation is that you will have one added slide. The last slide is something that is not included. Let me go to it. The last slide is not. Okay, if I go back here. Strategic priority is. Okay, so this last slide that you'll include comes after the summary SWOT table. So the next to the last slide will be the summary SWOT table. Okay, and this is all explained in the video when you watch it. This is your summary SWOT table that you have just copied and pasted from your SWOT project that your team completed. That's the next to the last slide. And then your very last slide, again, is going to be the strategic priority slide. Now, this is really the meat of your presentation. So do not leave out this last slide. This last slide is basically making sense out of the SWOT presentation. And this is going to guide the company, to direct the company as to what their strategic priorities or their strategic objectives should be, what the strategic plan is trying to do, in other words. So this tells the company, these are the most important things that you need to accomplish. These are your strategic objectives, what you want to accomplish. And remember that we said the rule is that strategic priority one, we talked about this on your last exam, is always correcting the weaknesses that are related to the industry key success factors. All right. So these are the things that are most important for long-term success. If you have any weaknesses, like similar to the simulation, if you have a weakness in one of the customer key buying criteria areas, then that's something you need to fix immediately before we progress on to the next round. These are things that need to be fixed first before we can even talk about growing. So that's strategic priority number one. Number two is growing, and the best way to grow is matching your strengths to the environmental opportunities. And strategic priority three is buffering against what you believe to be the most important threats. So you're going to look at your SWOT summary table and pick out what you think to be the most important weaknesses. How can you fix them? How can we grow from here on out? What are the best ways to grow from here on out? Looking at the company's strengths and the potential opportunities out there. And then number three, what are the main threats that we need to buffer against? What are the things that are most likely to happen, and if they do happen, would have a big impact on your company. So that would be a new thing. You didn't have this in your SWOT project. This is something new that your team will add, the very last slide. And so again, assign responsibilities. Who's going to present which one of these slides? And remember, it's only 15 minutes, so you don't have a lot of time. If you have 15 minutes, that means no more than 15 slides. That would be 1 minute. Your team would spend 1 minute on each slide. That's not very much time. So, 10 to 15 slides at the very most, because it's a 15-minute presentation, and you're going to post this on the class discussion board. And this is all due by April the 19th. So that's the next step. You will have one post per team. You're simply gonna start a new thread, and on the new thread you'll put AT&T SWOT presentation and include your file that contains the audio. Now, what some teams may want to do is what I do for these weekly meetings, which is you might have a team meeting and simply record the team meeting after you've kind of rehearsed it as a team. Record the team meeting with each person on the team presenting their part in the PowerPoint presentation. You could record the meeting through Teams and then submit the meeting recording file in the class discussion board. You could do it that way too. That would be also easy if your team has sort of prepared it, if they've rehearsed it. It would also, I think, be something that would be more creative and flow a little bit better. But again, it's going to be a big file, so you won't be able to email this. You'll need to actually post it on this class discussion board and make sure that everybody on your team can go in and hear the audio. So it's not just your PowerPoint you're posting. You can also hear the audio. I have a YouTube video that kind of shows you how to insert audio clips on each slide. It's really easy to do if you haven't done it before. That's the easiest way, I think, to divide it up if you're doing all of this online with a team. But again, you could do a Teams meeting recording like I do with my weekly meetings. You might have another piece of software somebody on your team has that makes it, kind of creative. You can do it any way you would like. but it needs to be 15 minutes or less. After April the 19th, the week of the 20th, you'll be assigned a certain number of specific presentations to watch and to review, and we'll talk about that later on. We're just going to kind of take it one step at a time. For right now, as a team, start talking about how you're going to get the team presentation completed. And since this is an online class, we're obviously not going to do an on-campus presentation. You'll need to record some audio on your PowerPoints and post that on the discussion board. Let me stop here and see if there are any questions about the SWOT presentation before we keep going. Y'all, please let me know if you do have any questions. Okay, I'm going to assume you don't. If I don't hear, okay, if I don't hear anything, and I don't hear anything right now, I'm going to assume that you do not have any questions. So the last thing I want to talk about tonight would be the results of the CAPSIM simulation so far. We just finished round 4. This is the point in time where things start getting a little more competitive, a little more challenging, a little more complex. So I see that we do have some things going on that's a little bit different from the first 3 rounds, and I want to call your attention to them. And one thing is that you'll notice we have, as you know, 2 different industries in this class. This is the first industry. You can see who the team members are in the first industry. You know that you're in the first industry if the last 3 digits of your industry ID are 390. That's the first industry. You can see we have at least one team that's losing money. All right, so one team's losing money. We need to figure out if you are not, and there's another team that's getting close to break even, but there's one team that's losing money. If your business model isn't working, meaning you're underwater, you're losing money, that's a big problem, a big weakness, and that's the first thing we need to fix. We need to figure out why. So it may be that you're investing in the right areas to gain competitiveness, to gain, some competitive market position, but you're either charging too much or too little for your product, or you're spending too much money, way more than you're bringing in. So one or all of the above. But you can see, looking at the balanced scorecard for the first industry, that we have, let's see, the winners so far. Again, this could change, but the winner so far is Team Digby, has the highest total balance scorecard points. And in second place would be Team Erie. In third place, right behind Team Erie, is Team Chester. So you guys are doing well. It looks like your scores are going up. Team Digby and really Team Ferris, you made some big progress. A lot of it's probably due to your investments in TQM. One thing I want to show you, when I look at the reports, the fast track report, and I saw this in my on-campus class as well, you can see Team Baldwin is losing a lot of money. We need to figure out what's going on there. Return on sales, that's your net profit margin. A lot of people are not forecasting well. If we look at this, what this is telling me, look at this. We have a lot of teams that had an emergency loan. Now, what is that? What is an emergency loan? An emergency loan means that you ran out of cash during the year. That means most likely what happened is you over forecasted, that you were too optimistic in the forecast that you put in on the marketing page, on the marketing decision menu. Again, we want to be pessimistic on this menu. We want to make sure that you are not forecasting more than what you really can sell. You want to be more conservative, or maybe more pessimistic in your marketing forecast, so that you don't run out of money during the year. So make sure you're conservative in your marketing forecast, and also make sure your business is not losing money. So it could be that you're just not selling enough. And what I'm seeing here, what's going on throughout the industry is a lot of really high ending inventories. So what this is telling me is that you're way optimistic about what you could sell. The opposite is happening with Team Digby. They ran out of stock. But then if you look at Chester, look at this. Chester has so much ending inventory. That's costing you a lot of money. Your operating expenses have gone way up because your inventory carrying costs are so high. So don't produce as much. If your inventory is this high and if you're only selling 1,600,000, but yet you have over 1.2 million in ending inventory, you don't need to produce that much this round unless you're making big changes in terms of your price or your promotion activity. Unless you're making really big changes, you don't need to produce much at all. And you can see with the new product, we actually ran out of stock. So we're not doing a really good job forecasting. Make sure you can see, for example, Team Digby ran out of stock, which gave everybody else a little bit extra sales, but for the low-tech segment. But Team Digby is knocking it out of the park in terms of their market share for the low-tech segment. And also for the high-tech, we really ran out of stock. So we need to make sure that A, we're not running out of stock, but also B, that we have a competitive product. You can see Team Baldwin here. It does not really even have a product in the high-tech segment. Looks like Team Baldwin has chose to remain in the low-tech segment. And that's fine. That's a choice. Not everybody needs to be in the high-tech segment. But if you're not in the high-tech segment, we need to make sure that we're at least doing a good job selling in the low-tech segment, or we're not going to meet our profit goals. We're going to lose money. So some of this may be due to maybe a team didn't get their decisions in. That could be that. But look, we have some really strange things going on with our TQM for Industry One. First of all, we have Andrews did not participate in TQM. They may have run out of money, but we should be doing something in TQM. And then we have teams that are actually spending too much money. So remember, the point of diminishing returns on each one of these initiatives is 750,000, like what Ferris is doing. If you're spending 1,000,000, you're overspending, meaning you're not getting additional benefit for that. 750 or a total of 7.5 million for all of these initiatives should be the max for any one round. Over 750, you're not increasing anything. You're not increasing the impact of any of these initiatives. So it's like throwing money out the window. The minimum would be 250. What Erie's doing, that's the minimum to make an impact at all. The max is 750. What Team Ferris is doing, 1,000,000's not going to help you out. All right. So, and also make a note of this, but the max you would spend cumulatively, meaning over the 8 rounds, all right, rounds 3 through 8, cumulatively on any one initiative is 2 million. So Team Digby, if you've already spent $1,000,000 in round 3, and then you're spending another $1,000,000 in round 4, you've maxed out what you could spend anyway. So there's no need in spending any more money on TQM. You're not going to get any additional benefit out of it. So it's really kind of done wrong. We need to max out at 750 each round, but that's already done. It's said and done. So I wouldn't stress over that. You're not going to be necessarily hurt by it, except for the fact you spent 250,000 more than you should have on each one initiative to get a bigger impact. So y'all take a look at these reports always before you make decisions. Let's go to the second industry. I'm going to go back to the dashboard, and I'm going to go to the second industry in this class, which is the industry that ends in the numbers 391. And you see there are 2 companies in the second industry that are not making money. They're losing money. So once again, if you're losing money, it means your business model is not working. Here are the competitors in industry 2 in this class. All right, you got to fix that. If your business model is not working, let's see what they're doing on the balance scorecard. This is industry 2. And you can see for the second industry, we have a team that has now surpassed 400 on the cumulative balance scorecard. Team Erie, you have 420, you're in the lead. And then Team Baldwin has 386 in second place. All right, so doing very, very well, Team Baldwin and Team Erie. We have a few other teams that are struggling, so we need to figure out why your business model is not working. So let's take a look at the reports and see what's going on in the second industry. Let me go to round 4. Yes, go ahead.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
How do we see that other industry? Because on our dashboard, it won't let us switch.
Okay, see that other industry. Oh, you can't see both industries. I see what you're asking me now.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
can't.
so
We can only see 390.
and that's the only one you need to be focused on actually. So you're competing within that one industry. You're not competing with industry 2. All right.
Okay.
So you don't need to see the other industry because it doesn't affect your performance at all.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's the reason why I'm going through. I wish we could have 12 teams in one industry, but the problem with that is that the industry would be very crowded. And so it'd be like, instead of having 6 airline companies, you're dealing with 12 airline companies and they're all the same size, whereas if in the airline industry, we have American, Delta, and United. Those are the 3 big ones. We have some other regional airlines, but those are the 3 big ones. So if you're looking at this industry, 6 is probably enough to compete with. It might make the competitive space very crowded. So that's the reason why they max out for each industry 6 teams. So, but not to worry, because the second industry is not going to affect your performance. Only those teams in your one industry are going to affect your performance.
Okay. Yeah, I was confused. Now I
Yeah,
see it where like Ferris
yeah.
in one industry is not Ferris in the other. Like, okay, like,
Exactly. So two
okay, yeah.
different two different teams, two different and Team Ferris and Industry 2 probably has a different competitive strategy than Team Ferris and Industry 1 because they're 2 different teams. Yeah. So um
Thank
so
you.
anyway, yeah, so I'm looking and I'm seeing here that we have had some teams and from Industry 2 that had emergency loans, one very significant. If you had an emergency loan, again, what that means is that you over forecasted. You were too optimistic in your marketing forecast, and we need to go back down to reality and make sure that we're not being overly optimistic in how much we can sell. Now, let's take a look at what you sold this year. You see, for example, let's look at Team Digby. Team Digby has a product that only sold 366,000, but look at how much we have in the ending inventory. That's way too much. In fact, Team Digby, you probably don't even need to produce the DALF product at all this round. You might sell off part of the production capacity for that one product because you have way too much inventory. We need to sell that ending inventory. On the flip side of that, we have a team that ran out of stock here. It has 0 left, so that's being too pessimistic in your forecast. We need to produce a little bit more so we don't run out of stock. That's team Baldwin. And same thing happened to Team Erie, ran out of stock. So we want to try to make sure that we have enough in stock. Something happened with Team Ferris where we produced, but we didn't sell anything. And that could be that maybe your product specifications are wrong. Let's just take a look. Yeah, we have fast sold, that's Team Ferris, but the new product did not sell at all. It was produced, but it did not sell at all. So we need to figure out what happened with that. And it could be the performance and size are not within the segment bubble inside that perceptual bubble on the R&D page. We'll have to take a look at that, but nothing sold. So we have some possibly R&D problems. We have some forecasting issues that we need to clean up. Try to be conservative or pessimistic on your marketing forecast, but then produce a little bit more, not a lot. You don't want this much left in your ending inventory, definitely. But You also don't want zero in your ending inventory. So you don't want to be too pessimistic or too optimistic because either one can hurt you. But having a lot of ending inventory is probably worse because it means that your demand isn't as high as you had hoped. So something is wrong with your product or something may be wrong with your marketing strategy. But do take a look at that in industry too. So again, we have some of the same mistakes being made with the TQM. Team Andrews, you spent way too much on the TQM for CPI system. 750 is the max for each round. 1500 is twice as much as you should be spending. You're not getting any benefit when you spend more than 750 in each round. So this is money throwing out the window because it's not doing anything for you. Same thing with Ferris. We're spending too much money. 750 is the max. Team Erie, you did it right. All right, and then you see Baldwin was they tried to be a little more focused, and they're spending different amounts for different initiatives, probably targeting those initiatives that help them the most, given what they need to be working on. And Chester, you didn't invest. Now keep in mind, even if you're running low on cash, you get some of the return on your investment in TQM back in the same round that you are investing in it. So see if you can manage to spend money or invest money on some of the TQM initiatives. They can offer huge benefits for you in terms of improving your efficiencies and improving your profitability and putting you ahead on the balance scorecard and in this competition. So take a look at spending some money. If you can do just a little bit like Team Digby did, that can help you significantly. TQM is a huge benefit. And those who, you can tell, those who took advantage of it, they reaped some benefits in terms of an increase in their return on sales, which is the same thing. Your return on sales, remember, is the same thing as your net profit margin, right? And we want that to be positive, and we want that to be as high as possible. So those teams who invested in TQM, you can see their contribution margin and the return on sales, the ROS is higher, and that's because they're getting a return on investment of their TQM initiative. So y'all look at that. Any questions about what's happening in the any other questions about what's happening in the CAPSIM simulation? Okay, guys, so if you're struggling, if your team lost money, then I will be happy to meet. My only requirement is that I have your entire team in the meeting, but email me and we can find a time to meet this week because we need to figure out what your main weakness is, what your problem is, and then develop a solution, a fix to that problem so that you can improve in round 5. We still have 4 more rounds left in this simulation. There's plenty of time for you to improve your score on the simulation, improve your grade in the class. But again, you don't want to wait another round before you figure out what your problem is and then develop a solution to it. But we've got to make sure our business model works, that we're not losing money. That's number one. So if you're losing money, we got to figure out why you're losing money. It could be in your product, bad R&D specifications, could be in your marketing strategy, could be your price is too high or too low. You need to look at the report and compare what are your strengths and weaknesses in each segment compared to your competitors within each segment. All right. And let's go ahead, and if you want to tweak your SWOT paper to improve it, make sure there are no typos on it, that it looks good, that you have everything I ask for in the report. You have until Tuesday night to revise and resubmit through the assignments Dropbox. If you want to make improvements, you can. I won't start grading until Wednesday morning. You can go ahead if you want as a team and start working on your SWOT presentation that is due on April the 19th. That's the next part of this SWOT project. So you can get together in your team while you're making your round 5 decisions. Also talk about who's going to be responsible for what in that presentation, and start developing your SWOT PowerPoints if you want. We have a couple of weeks to get this done. but you can start working on that. You don't have to wait until I grade your SWOT project to start on that. Any questions on the SWOT presentation as of right now? There is another extra credit potential, the Six Sigma White Belt professional certification. It's free. This will take you an hour to an hour and a half to complete. I'll add 10 points to your second test grade if you complete it. Um, just submit a screenshot of your certificate that they send to you via email. And that is something you can add to your LinkedIn profile, to your resume. The Six Sigma White Belt is not going to tell employers that you're an expert, but it is going to tell them you have some basic background knowledge about what is Six Sigma, the Six Sigma process, and what Six Sigma can do, the benefits of Six Sigma to an organization. So there are a lot of Fortune 500 companies. We have a Fortune 500 company here in town that uses Six Sigma, and that's Aflac. A lot of Fortune 500 companies that have reaped benefits in terms of improving their efficiencies and increasing customer satisfaction using Six Sigma processes. So you can learn about what it does through and gain a white belt certification. That's a professional certification, and also add 10 points to your second test grade. Let me tell you that the max extra credit you can get on the second test, though, is 20 points. So if you've been attending these online meetings, remember we said at the beginning, you get 10 points for attending most of the online meetings, and you get 10 points if you scored at or above the national average on the ETS exam. So this is something for people who, if you didn't score above the national average, or if you just want to add another professional certification to your resume, then do the Six Sigma White Belt. But this gives you another potential extra credit opportunity. So again, you get a max of up to 20 points that you can add to that second test to improve your score in this class. Y'all should be able to see your current grade. Again, that's only with 60% of the scores for this course that I have currently. You still have 40% out there that hasn't been recorded. We haven't completed yet. So you have a lot of room still to improve your grade. Keep trying, y'all. We only have a month left. But I want to see you get the best grade that you can from the class, and I want you to be successful. So if you need help on the simulation, email me. And again, I want to meet with your entire team, not just one person on the team. I want to see the entire team in a meeting. So get with your team and find the time they can meet with me, and I'll try to make time so that we can talk about your round 5 performance, or round going forward to the next round, which is round 5. We can talk about your round 4, what were the problems, and see if we can find ways, some solutions to fix those problems. Any other questions before we sign off for tonight? Okay, so I